When Donald Trump looked Mark Carney in the eye and declared that Canada only survives thanks to the United States, most people heard rudeness. Political commentators condemned the lack of diplomacy. Social media erupted with outrage. But geopolitical analysts heard something entirely different. They heard an ultimatum. They heard the death rattle of an international order that has governed the Western world since 1945. And in Beijing, strategists quietly raised their glasses because America just handed China its greatest victory without Beijing firing a single shot. Welcome to the Davos 2026 analysis that Washington doesn't want you to hear. January 2026, the Swiss Alps, the World Economic Forum's 56th annual meeting brings together the world's most powerful individuals. The official theme is collaboration for the intelligent age. But walk through those corridors, listen to the whispered conversations between defense ministers, intelligence chiefs, and central bankers, and you'll hear a very different story. Everyone is asking the same question: what just happened to the West? We are witnessing a paradox that will define the next decade of global politics, and most Americans don't even realize it's happening. Donald Trump has returned to power with an economic plan that's working. U.S. oil production has shattered every record. Natural gas output matches Russia, Iran, and China combined. The economy is expanding. And the Golden Dome missile defense system, with its $500 billion price tag, promises to make America nearly invulnerable to nuclear attack. By every conventional metric, this looks like triumph. But behind those closed doors in Davos, where the real conversations happen, analysts are using a different word. They're calling this a Pyrrhic victory. America is building the most impregnable fortress in human history, but it's burning every bridge that leads to it. And while Washington celebrates its tactical wins, Beijing is quietly preparing to seize control of everything that remains outside the fortress walls. Let me be absolutely clear about what we witnessed at Davos 2026. This wasn't just another contentious summit. This was a funeral, the funeral of diplomatic etiquette that has governed Western relations for 8 decades, the funeral of the transatlantic partnership, the end of the illusion that America treats its allies as equals rather than subordinates. Trump is doing something unprecedented in modern American history. He is publicly, deliberately, and consciously transforming relationships with America's closest friends into a suzerain vassal format. That's not my characterization. That's the framework emerging from his own words and actions, and he's doing this in plain view of the entire world. For China, this is a gift wrapped in golden paper with a ribbon on top. Every statement Trump makes about Canada's dependence, every threat of tariffs against European allies, every public humiliation of a partner confirms Beijing's narrative to the global South. Look, Chinese diplomats tell leaders in Africa, Asia, Latin America, America doesn't have friends, it only has servants. We offer you an alternative. We offer partnership without domination. This undermines Western unity more effectively than any Chinese investment in African ports, more effectively than any Belt and Road loan, more effectively than decades of propaganda campaigns, because America is doing it to itself, in public, on camera, at the world's most prestigious gathering of Western power. Let's decode what happened with Canada, because this is where the paradigm shift becomes crystal clear. The United States and Canada share the world's longest undefended border, 8,891 kilometers, no walls, no checkpoints, no military installations. The two economies are so deeply intertwined that 75% of Canadian exports flow south, while American supply chains depend on Canadian raw materials, energy, and manufacturing capacity. This isn't merely an alliance. This is a single economic organism with two heads. The old framework that governed this relationship operated on a simple premise: security is a right guaranteed by treaty, NATO's Article 5, NORAD's Joint Command Structure. The foundational assumption that an attack on Canada is an attack on America. This wasn't charity. It was mutual interest. Canada provides strategic depth, early warning systems in the Arctic, secure resource access, a buffer zone that extends America's defensive perimeter by thousands of miles. Trump's new framework is radically different. Security is no longer a right. It is a service that can be withdrawn, a service that comes with conditions, a service that must be paid for, not in money, but in submission. Listen to the language he used. Canada gets a lot of freebies from us. They should be grateful. This is the language of patronage, of dependency, of hierarchy. This is how empires speak to colonies, not how allies speak to allies. Prime Minister Mark Carney understood this immediately. His speech the day before Trump's statement had already acknowledged the transformation. He used a word that sent shockwaves through the audience: rupture. We are in the midst of a rupture, Carney said, not a transition, not a disagreement, a rupture. A rupture implies something is broken that cannot be repaired. Carney's response wasn't defiance. It was adaptation to a new reality. He called for middle powers, Canada, European nations, Japan, Australia, to stop pretending the rules-based international order still functions as advertised, to build coalitions that work issue by issue with partners who share enough common ground to act together. If we are not at the table, he warned, we are on the menu. Think about what this means from Beijing's perspective. For years, China has been telling the global South that America is not a friend but a hegemon, that Western talk of partnerships and alliances is merely cover for exploitation, that the international order is rigged to benefit the powerful at the expense of the weak. Trump just confirmed all of this, live, on camera. At the most elite gathering of Western power, he confirmed it not with Chinese propaganda, but with his own words, in his own voice, representing the official position of the United States government. The unity of the West has cracked, and China didn't have to fire a single shot. But there's another dimension to this that's even more important. The global South is watching. Nations in Africa, Southeast Asia, Latin America, they remember decades of Western lectures about sovereignty, international law, and the rules-based order. They remember being told that economic coercion is wrong, that territorial integrity is sacred, that alliances must be built on mutual respect. Now they see the most powerful Western nation treating its closest neighbor, a country that shares its language, culture, and democratic values, as a dependency. They see tariffs weaponized against allies. China watches with equal alarm. Beijing's nuclear modernization program was already accelerating. New ICBM silos, hypersonic delivery systems, submarine-launched ballistic missiles. The Golden Dome will accelerate this buildup even further because cost-exchange ratios favor the offense. It's cheaper to build more missiles than to shoot them down. A missile defense system that costs trillions to build can be overwhelmed by an arsenal that costs billions to expand. The paradox of defense is that it can be profoundly destabilizing. When one side believes it is invulnerable, it may be tempted to act more aggressively. When the other side believes its deterrent is being neutralized, it may be tempted to strike before it's too late. This isn't theory. This is nuclear strategy that has kept the peace for 80 years, and the Golden Dome is rewriting those equations. Now let's talk about the dimension of this conflict that almost nobody is discussing, the what war. Split your screen in half. On the left, wind turbines in Germany rotating slowly in winter wind. Electricity prices have spiked 64%. Manufacturers are relocating production to countries with cheaper energy. The industrial heartland of Europe is hollowing out. On the right, gas flares and nuclear cooling towers in the United States operating at full capacity. Natural gas production has reached all-time records, 108 billion cubic feet per day, matching Russia, Iran, and China combined. Oil production has hit 24.2 million barrels per day, exceeding Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. While Europe debated the ethics of artificial intelligence, Trump was focused on electricity. He called Europe's Green Deal a green new scam. He ridiculed wind turbines as losers that kill the birds. He mocked the continent's energy transition as economic suicide. The Global South offers another alternative, a loose coalition of nations tired of being pawns in great power games. A market of 8 billion people who increasingly determine where capital flows, where technology develops, where the future is being built. Europe, even weakened and dependent, offers yet another alternative, a model of cooperation rather than coercion, rules rather than raw power, multilateralism rather than unilateralism. America can be the strongest, the richest, the most technologically advanced, but if it is also the most isolated, if its allies are vassals and its partnerships are transactions, then strength becomes a prison. The walls of the fortress keep enemies out, but they also keep the fortress in. This is the lesson Davos 2026 is teaching us. This is the reality that the next decade will reveal. This is the world Trump is building, one ultimatum at a time. Welcome to the new geopolitical reality. Welcome to Fortress America. Welcome to China's quiet victory.